Kavita, welcome back to India.
Thank you.
How have all of your world travels been?
I really have been traveling the world.
Yeah.
To Amsterdam, then to Singapore, then to the US.
Yeah.
It's been fun. It's been fun and I feel super privileged. And I'm also, I think, doing all the travel that was backlogged from the pandemic. I love Seattle.
I understand this was your first time in the Pacific Northwest.
Oh my God. It was brilliant. Just brilliant. I didn't want to leave.
Yeah.
It's one of those unexpected trips. I know everybody talks about the Pacific Northwest and, I've watched the movie Wild and you know how I love that movie about how she treks all
Reese
the way.
Witherspoon, was it?
Yes, Reese Witherspoon. About, it's this book by
The
Shenoy.
Pacific Crest Trail.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I was just so enamored by it, but I didn't think it was so accessible and still so beautiful. But I must say, LA and visiting Universal Studios and Disneyland made me really think about how other studios are going to make it without a theme park. Man, those parks were packed. They were packed. And I went on a Wednesday to Disneyland and there was pram traffic. There was stroller traffic. And there were parents and there were kids and it was packed. The park was just packed up to the brim. Rides were really long in waiting time. So, I mean, I don't know what we're talking about in terms of not going back to work, but people are definitely going to theme parks. For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
It sounds like you went to the heart of our industry.
Yes.
You went to Hollywood.
Yep.
You saw Warner Brothers Discovery's office. You saw Netflix's office.
I did.
You went to the land of content.
Yep.
You were in California where all the Twitter drama is playing out every second.
Oh my goodness.
You were in Seattle where Amazon and Microsoft and all of these other guys are trying to figure out how they can play a part in
Very
all of
true.
this. I must say,
Techland, baby.
you've been in some interesting...
Yeah, but I came
This
back
is-
to some very somber news with the layoffs. We were talking about it yesterday and you had some thoughts on it.
Yeah, so I did my usual round of podcasts this week. I listened to the All In podcast. I listened to Peter Kafka. I listened to Kara Swisher. Marc Andreessen is back with the A16Z podcast. And the one common theme I picked up from them and also the Lightshed podcast with Rich Greenfield was everyone's asking the same question, which is, what the hell's going on?
Yep.
We've, of course, touched upon this through many of our previous episodes. And the closest description that I have been able to articulate myself was everything that we're seeing right now is seismic activity. It almost as if there wasn't enough coming from inside the ad tech industry with cookies and identity and the fundamental shifts in streaming as a business model. The world went and added macroeconomic factors and layoffs to it, to a point where I think you described 2023 as brace for impact.
Yep.
And even from a layoff perspective, I know we've talked about the talent market as almost like a bubble for the last 2 years. In fact,
And we've been on the hard receiving side of the inflated salaries and the expectations, right?
Yeah. As a small business, there is always the threat that larger companies that are willing to throw a lot more money at various problems, content, tech, talent, will eat our lunch.
Yep.
And right now, everyone said, no, it's going to correct itself. It's a bubble. It's going to burst at some point. I did not know that the way it would burst would be the way the last 2 weeks have panned out. Mass layoffs. Very unfortunate to read stories that hit very close to home. People we know, people who've moved countries, who now have to pick up and move on. And yes, it's part of every tech cycle, but safe to say that every tech company we know and speak of on this podcast is gearing up for a very, very choppy 2023.
Yeah. But what's heartening to see as well on Twitter, as well as all these groups that we're all part of, like I'm part of the Zoogla group as well. There are different types of sheets and groups coming up where they are putting up various vacancies for jobs in companies. People are trying to accommodate people who have been laid off. These are good PMs. These are good engineers. I see a lot of client services, client-facing, advertiser-facing staff as well that have been laid off. Ajit Mohan also left just before the shit hit the fan, and now we know why. But this is something that I think Zuckerberg had to do, right? Because he's betting the farm on the metaverse. So today, what I was listening to, I think in Peter Kafka's recent podcast where he was talking to somebody else who covers big tech. And what they were talking about was that the reason why this had to be done was the metaverse is extremely expensive. It's extremely, extremely expensive. And Facebook and Instagram and WhatsApp are all operated within somebody else's sandbox. It's within a phone. It's within Apple's phone or within an Android phone or a Samsung phone, etc. So you really don't have that kind of control over what's happening because the device in itself is somebody else's. So what Marc is trying to do at this point in time is maybe putting down a huge bet on the next major computing platform.
Because it's too late for him to build his own phone.
Yeah, well, yeah. And how many phones can you have, really? And, speaking to that, when I went to university, look, I'm obviously full of my trip. I've come back so...
I want to know all about it.
Yeah, and I'm like so full of like great holiday energy. So if anybody wants it, I'm like happy to give some. But in Universal Studios, 3 out of 5 rides were AR and VR. Gone are the days where you have like these super open rides. There are some, there's some in Jurassic Park. There is some in, there's some of the old rides.
What Smash up the street.
Yeah. In Bangalore, we had Smash up the street, but it's almost like that. And it's obviously at a scale where you have, you have an installation which is making it far more believable, but it's all VR. And I can see that being far more transportable, and you can and far more, there's a lot more chance for people to change these attractions faster rather than really sinking a lot of money building stuff that's brick and mortar. So there is definitely in entertainment, obviously, for these large scale attractions, the metaverse is definitely going to be there. But when you go and read up about what maybe the product manager or the product marketing manager for the metaverse is talking about, they're all talking on stage about how this metaverse is going to help small businesses create new jobs, which it is. So maybe all of these people who have been laid off are going to now sit in a cafe somewhere in Silicon Valley and start coding up what it means to be a part of the metaverse. And we'll soon have another entrepreneurial wave on it. You think?
I hope so. I mean, I'm pretty sure something has to come out of this because this is a very confusing time. This is a very confusing podcast. Like I literally, as we were preparing for it, the usual storyboarding exercise that we do usually tends to take some shape right before the podcast. My notes are all over the place. Like I literally don't know where to start. I'll give you a few examples, right? A few weeks ago, I got introduced to this very nice blog called Mobile Dev Demo by Eric Seufert, who gave his own take on all the earnings reports. And in his books, he was talking about how every tech company that's had bad results, bad advertiser outlook is blaming macroeconomic factors. They're blaming TikTok. They're blaming post-COVID correction. But he said the reality is that they don't want to accept the fact that maybe it's ATT, maybe it's
I read
Apple.
the tweet.
Maybe it's Apple.
Yeah, I did.
Because it's a myth, right? Ben Thompson talked about this on Strategy. He said, you can blame TikTok all you want. TikTok's numbers are plateauing. So it's not that they are gaining attention. You can blame macroeconomic factors, but agencies did well. The trade desk did well.
News Corp is doing well.
News Corp did not do badly.
It didn't do badly, yes.
As you said.
No, it didn't do badly.
Ben Strategiry's latest post talked about how there are meta myths that are used to defend their position right now, but many of them actually can be busted. It doesn't seem to be the case.
So nobody knows what's happening, basically.
If there's one thing to take away from today's episode, it's that there are no takeaways.
But brace for impact.
Brace for impact. Chamath on the All In podcast gave a beautiful analysis, which Rohan and I talked about last week, where he said, yes, it is going to require Zuckerberg to either accept all of this as, signs that his business is slowing down. Maybe tech is not going to grow at a breakneck pace every year. Or he has to be the visionary who places the next big bet that most people will not believe. And maybe that's what's going on. And he compared the size of Mark Zuckerberg's bet to every large bet made in the history of human civilization. From the iPhone to the Apollo missions to various large technology plays. And the only play that comes close to what Marc is betting was the Apollo missions, which was not meant to be some profitable enterprise.
Which is going completely against
Yeah.
what currently is the flavor of the day, which is profitability.
Yeah.
It's all about sound business practices, making sure that you're making margins, you have a sustainable business, you can maintain whatever you're doing right now. It's
Yeah.
flying in the face of it.
And just when we thought that, okay, earnings week had ended and all the chaos is going to stabilize, and now we're going to see them make the right moves, every tech company announced layoffs. It was almost coordinated in such. Everybody did it like 2 days apart.
You think they coordinated it? You think there's a conspiracy theory there?
No, I'm not going to go there. But then everyone recovered from that.
Yeah.
And then 2 days ago, FTX just collapsed.
Yeah.
Went from like billions of dollars down
But
to
this
zero.
was bound to happen, really. It was bound to happen. Everything was like growing into a... I just keep going back to that roundtable that we had on sustainability. How much are you going to sustain the up and up?
Yeah.
And it kind of... It's like a lot of it happened before it had to happen. So it's all come to a screeching halt, or it's all just tired out. Everybody's just tired out.
Yeah, I don't know. In the middle of all this, the US has elections going on, which has, of course, distracted everybody from everything. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm curious to know what your big predictions are for 2023. Do you have any at this point?
I just wanna print Brace for Impact on a t-shirt, wear it.
That's
That's
it.
my uniform for the next quarter, and cautiously enter 2023. I think there's a lot of, and we were talking to some of our investors yesterday as well. There's a lot of sentiment in the market that is not very positive. And when you talk about emotion at the end of the day, what happens is that it's not very quantifiable. You don't know which way it's going to go, whether it's when you're buying or when you're selling or when you're doing anything in the business world as well. If there's emotion that kind of comes into the way in terms of a sentiment of what's going to happen, I don't know whether that's going to be, whether that's something that we can, put our finger on and predict about something. But next year, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard because everybody's going to be a little scared. And when you're scared, you act funny, right? You don't really act from a position of strength. In India, I feel like we're going to enter the year next year with a new owner of IPL.
Yeah.
Also, we noticed that every other broadcaster seems to have balanced out their content portfolio with some sport in it, which is interesting. Z has sports.
Yeah. Sony
has sports.
Star has
sports. And now Jio has sports. So everybody has a little bit of sports in their portfolio. So nobody is all in on entertainment or all in on sports, except for Sports 18, which is the Viacom new channel. So I'm excited to see what happens over there, because we know that Reliance is also going after they're on the Olympic committee and things like that. So they have the muscle, they have deep pockets to get to the sports side. It'll be exciting to see what happens. All in all, what goes up must come down, and if everything goes to shit, you have to like sit back and say this too shall pass, I guess, right? So my predictions for next year are that we won't do that badly, but we will be far more cautious. I think everybody will be a lot more cautious. So there will be a lot of sluggishness in deals, especially even in advertising deals as well. I don't think there will be a lot of upfront deals, especially in India. We may have more cautious quarter-on-quarter kind of deals that are happening. We'll see a lot more, from what we've been talking to people in the market, we'll probably see a lot more avenues for advertising. All our e-commerce players are at this, as we speak right now, they are shoring up their audiences, figuring out their advertising strategy so that they're not interfering with the user journey, but they're actually making it a viable place for ad dollars ad rupees, to come there. And they're trying to make it viable for brands and advertisers to come and put their money there who may not be endemic to the platform. So we are seeing some turn, especially in the ad market, but it'll all hinge on what kind of strategies these advertising outfits or these units within these companies actually adopt. What do you think?
I think ad spend will slow down. It's bound to happen. We've seen it in every single recession. It's the first thing that takes a hit. the crypto and NFT market will finally correct itself to a place that makes some sense. It went from being worth millions of dollars to being worth zero to suddenly NFTs slowly starting to have some value. We noticed Instagram launched their own NFT interface last week, where you can create and buy and hold NFTs within the Instagram app. I think Elon Musk is going to go and finally settle this business model, but he's going to go to war with the US Congress at some point. They're going to pull him up, try and figure out what he's doing, owning all these companies.
I mean, it's own now.
Companies, but he's also now singularly in control of the conversation platform that now doesn't even have a board of directors. So I think he's going to go to war with the US Congress.
Yep.
At some point, the US will figure out what to do with TikTok. Has to happen. But I think broadly, advertiser spend will go down and every company will try and make it to the end of 2023 and then figure out what to do from there.
I think that's pretty much what's going to happen, because everybody's like at this point in time in a wait and watch mode. Will you pay to be on Twitter?
Yes.
Because when I was listening to it, it feels like, I'm not sure whether if you're like, I know a lot of people who are passive users of Twitter. It's almost like a magazine or something where they scroll through a lot of stuff. So I don't know whether those kind of people will pay, but people who want to be heard, maybe they'll pay.
No, I'm quite passive on Twitter, but I just use it so much that if you just told me that I have to subscribe to it to keep it alive, I'll do it.
But I thought this whole like paying for Twitter is all about making sure that your tweet is actually seen by people. It's almost like a promoted tweet.
To position it that way. They're trying to basically say, look, you'll be verified, and then they have a lot of problems to solve. There's a lot of impersonation going on. Verification was supposed to stop impersonation, and it has made it worse. They are going to have to figure it out. And Elon Musk wrote yesterday that said, we're going to do dumb things till we figure this out. And
I saw that.
I laughed at it, but I'm sure it's true. But at the end of all this, if they solve for these workflows, I would pay for Twitter because I believe it's a platform that's immensely useful to me. And paying for it keeps it alive. Paying for it maybe gives me a nicer experience within Twitter. And I don't care. They don't give me a blue tick. Who am I to have a blue tick? But I will pay for Twitter just so I can use it because I use it a lot. That's it. And they have to correct. $8 in the US should mean 100 rupees in India when adjusted. If they come here with an $8 price point, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah, that'll be a little more expensive than one can afford at scale. So you're going to the UK next week? You're going to be in London?
Yes, I'm in London for a week. I am attending First Party Capital's event, Mad Tech Money. And then I'm at the DPP Media Leaders Briefing for a couple of days. I also have some interesting meetings set up with a few folks in the ad tech space. So I'm excited. It's my first time in the UK.
Nice. I hope you have a fun touristy time planned as well.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So look, today's podcast was something that we kind of wondered what we're going to talk about in the face of all of this abysmal news of layoffs and bad results and people. Even in our first circle of friends and colleagues, etc., we have a lot of shuffling, a lot of movement, a lot of layoffs. But it suffices to say that, in times of crisis, it's a point of transformation, and we're going to see a lot of change. And I do believe that this is going to like shake up a lot of people from either not following the path that they were on and do something new, do something more entrepreneurial. If the metaverse is here to stay, maybe we'll have a lot more businesses that are being set up on the metaverse. You'd never know. And the people who have stayed back are probably a lot more burdened than they thought they would be in the last quarter of this annual year. But there's a lot of help out there. There are a lot of people who are setting up spaces for to hire. Everybody is like literally saying, like opening up their doors and saying, come and apply. Let's see whether we can get you in. But conversely, I see people who are putting up their posts on Facebook, on LinkedIn, talking about how they're leaving Meta, but they're interested in another career altogether. They want to get into being VCs, or they want to get into, some other kind of a career path altogether, right?
Yep.
So, like, good luck to us all, I guess. And we will see you next week, hopefully with some more upbeat news and obviously a download from what happened at DPP and in UK
Yep.
and at MadTech Money.
Okay.
See you.
Bye.